Think everyone in America loves Trump? Think again. What if entire states are practically allergic to him? We're talking about places where his rallies are booed, his name ignites protests, and his policies are burned in effigy. Why do millions of Americans despise him with such passion? Is it about race, power, or something even deeper? From liberal strongholds to unexpected battlegrounds, these states didn't just vote blue, they made it personal. You won't believe how far some places have gone simply to reject him. Buckle up, because these are the 10 U.S. states that hate Trump, and they're not staying quiet. Number 10, California. It's the state where dreams are made, unless you're Donald Trump. Imagine a place where every one of his moves is met with outbursts of angry cheers and chants for impeachment echoing down the streets. In California, opposition to Trump is not a casual disagreement. It's a full-scale cultural and political mobilization actively working to push him out of the spotlight. This is the land of progressive visionaries, where the ideals of innovation and social justice prevail. From Silicon Valley's tech titans who continuously challenge outdated norms, to Hollywood's outspoken stars known for leveraging their platforms to champion change, Trump has rarely found a receptive audience here. Residents of California are fiercely proud of their diverse heritage and forward-thinking policies, making any attempt to import old-school politics seem alien. Whether it's at massive rallies in Los Angeles or local community meetings in the Bay Area, people are united in their clear rejection of his policies. You might expect the Golden State, with its vast geographic and cultural diversity, to be politically divided. However, when it comes to Trump, there is a remarkable, almost unanimous consensus against his leadership. The state has not voted red in a presidential election since 1988, and the widening gap between California's progressive values and his stances on immigration, climate change, and healthcare only reinforces this collective dismissal. The vibrant local media and grassroots activists add to the dynamic environment by constantly scrutinizing and challenging any rehashing of Trump's old rhetoric, ensuring that the cultural divide is as vivid as ever. Number 9, New York. Imagine being from the state where Trump's entire legacy was born, only to experience a complete reversal as the people who once stood by him now decisively turn their backs. New York is the very crucible in which his early ambitions were forged, yet today it stands as a formidable opponent. From the moment he stepped onto the political stage, New York's iconic skyline, from the towering spires of Manhattan to the creative pulse of Brooklyn, became the battleground for a relentless struggle between his brand of populism and the city's progressive ideals. There is a fascinating irony in the fact that the state which helped kickstart his career now embodies his most staunch critics. New Yorkers, known for their tough, no-nonsense attitude and their legacy of political activism, have built a reputation for not mincing words when it comes to defending their values. Every scandal, every controversial tweet, further tarnishes his already fragile image within these urban landscapes. His repeated attacks on New York's sanctuary policies and attempts to undermine local governance have only deepened the residents' disdain. Beyond the skirmishes of political rallies, cultural figures, local activists, and even everyday citizens join forces to ensure that the spirit of New York, innovative, resilient, and unyieldingly liberal, remains unbroken, continuously setting an example of resistance against forces that threaten to divide the community. This determined stance not only amplifies the city's progressive credentials, but also transforms each public confrontation into a dramatic reassertion of the state's long-held values. Number 8, Massachusetts. What happens when a state celebrated for its progressive values, world-class education, and intellectual pride rejects the very person imagined to lead the nation? Massachusetts has sent a resounding message: Donald Trump is simply not welcome here. The reaction to his policies has been nothing short of extraordinary. Historically, Massachusetts has been a Democratic stronghold, a bastion of liberal thought that delivered an overwhelming vote for Joe Biden in 2020. This state, with one of the nation's most forward-thinking electorates, consistently backs policies that are diametrically opposed to Trump's divisive agenda. But here's the kicker. Despite his long-standing ties to the business world, Massachusetts, home to some of the country's most prestigious institutions like Harvard, MIT, and an array of eminent research centers, could never rally behind him. The intellectual elite, along with an engaged citizenry deeply committed to progress and innovation, have made it abundantly clear that Trump's attacks on science, education, and rational policymaking are completely unacceptable. From the very beginning, his proposed dismantling of healthcare systems, his skepticism on climate change, and his undermining of scientific consensus starkly clashed with Massachusetts's vision of a forward-looking, inclusive society. Moreover, it isn't just the coastal metropolises or the Ivy League scholars who have spoken out. Rural towns and suburban communities throughout the Bay State have shared in this sentiment, uniting in their rejection of his policies. The backlash has been fierce and multifaceted, whether it's opposing tax cuts perceived as favoring the rich or resisting rollback measures on environmental protections. Massachusetts voters have made sure their voices are heard in no uncertain terms. In fact, the state was one of the pioneers in introducing an independent healthcare system long before Trump even considered it, making his attempts to dismantle such progress all the more ironic. For a state that prides itself on innovation and visionary leadership, Trump's vision was never in sync with what Massachusetts imagines for the future. As a consequence, his approval rating in this region remains stubbornly low, a clear forecast for years to come. Number 7. Vermont. How does a small state, proud of its fiercely independent spirit and deep-rooted liberal ideals, confront a president whose very persona embodies everything it stands against? Vermont, despite its modest population of just under 700,000, has demonstrated a political and cultural might that belies its size. Known for its picturesque landscapes, artisanal communities, and a citizenry that cherishes its individualism, Vermont has been at the forefront of organized resistance to Donald Trump. Vermont's reaction to Trump's presidency has been as unwavering as it is passionate. Bernie Sanders, the state's most recognized political figure, emerged as a powerful symbol of the resistance. However, the rejection of Trump goes beyond any single personality. The state's solid voting patterns reveal a community consistently choosing progressive leaders. In the 2020 election, Vermont cast an overwhelming vote of 66% for Biden, and in 2016, it delivered significant support to Hillary Clinton. One might wonder why a state that is often characterized by its rural landscapes and agricultural traditions would show such a marked aversion to Trump. The answer lies in Vermont's bedrock values. Vermont is not just politically blue, it is a state built on principles of social justice, universal health care, and a profound commitment to environmental stewardship. Its citizens embrace progressive policies that champion human rights, fairness, and sustainable practices. Trump's blunt attacks on these very issues, be it his dismissive remarks on climate change, his attempts to overhaul healthcare without adequate community support, or his inflammatory rhetoric on immigration, sparked immediate and intense backlash among Vermonters. In a state where independence is a cherished way of life, residents have continually insisted on electing leaders who reflect their ideals rather than those who seek to divide them. Even though Vermont's demographic might appear homogeneous at first glance, its residents possess a progressive streak so robust that any hint of divisive politics is swiftly and unequivocally rejected. In Vermont, it isn't a question of party politics, it's a steadfast adherence to core values, and anyone not in step with that vision is simply not given a chance. Trump didn't just lose Vermont at the ballot box in 2020, he lost the very hearts of its people. Now that you've seen how these two states articulate their resistance to Trump's leadership, you might be wondering if any other states share this fervent opposition. Next up, let's move on to a state that is equally fed up. Illinois awaits. Number 6. Illinois. What do you get when you combine an enormous, diverse population with a powerful Democratic stronghold and an unyielding rejection of Trump's policies? Illinois will astonish you with just how steadfastly this state stands against him. From the bustling, vibrant streets of Chicago, where urban activism is woven into the fabric of daily life, to the quieter, more reflective corners of the state, Trump's presidency encountered relentless and multifaceted pushback. It wasn't merely a matter of political disagreement, it was a comprehensive cultural and social repudiation. In 2020, Illinois gave Joe Biden an overwhelming victory, winning by a margin of over 17%, a testament to how deeply Trump's policies failed to resonate with voters here. Chicago alone is a veritable epicenter of anti-Trump sentiment. Here, blue-collar workers, college students, and professionals mobilize en masse against his stances on immigration, economic mismanagement, and environmental degradation. But the story doesn't end in the urban hubs. Rural areas across the state, once characterized by a more mixed political history, have gradually realigned. Over time, Trump's inflammatory rhetoric and controversial actions have pushed even some longtime Republicans to distance themselves from his influence, further shifting Illinois' political makeup to the left. What makes Illinois even more remarkable is its deep-rooted connection to organized labor. The state is home to some of the nation's most influential unions, which have been at the forefront of defending workers' rights. Trump's antagonistic approach toward labor rights and his attempts to undermine union protections only fueled the fire of discontent among these workers. Many, employed in industries that he promised to rejuvenate, felt profoundly betrayed by his empty pledges to revive manufacturing jobs. In Chicago, protests and political rallies became the norm as the city's progressive spirit blossomed into a defiant symbol of resistance against any semblance of authoritarianism. Throughout Illinois, the opposition to Trump evolved into something deeply personal, not merely a matter of policy but a rejection of a leadership style that many found divisive and insensitive. This unwavering unity in opposition set Illinois apart as a state that simply could not tolerate his brand of politics. Number 5. Oregon. Picture a state celebrated for its breathtaking natural beauty, its progressive political landscape, and a steadfast commitment to sustainability. Now imagine a president whose policies run diametrically counter to every principle that Oregon holds dear. Welcome to Oregon, where the response to Trump was immediate, forceful, and unequivocal. Oregon's resistance began with its lush, verdant forests and picturesque landscapes, serving as a constant reminder of what the state strives to protect. From the hip, eco-conscious streets of Portland to the vibrant college town of Eugene, Oregon's citizens, young, educated, and actively engaged, made it clear that they could not support a leader who ignored the scientific consensus on climate change. Trump's dismissive approach to environmental science and his policies, aimed at exploiting public lands, stirred fierce opposition among those who believe in preserving natural beauty for future generations. But the opposition in Oregon is not limited to environmental issues. The state's urban centers are steeped in progressive values that span across social justice, healthcare, and immigration. In 2020, Oregon's robust vote for Joe Biden underscored this cultural repudiation. His policies were seen as not just misguided, but fundamentally antithetical to the state's way of life. Iconic protests in Portland became symbolic battlegrounds where citizens gathered to echo their disapproval of Trump's handling of racial justice and police reform. When federal agents were dispatched in 2020 to quell these demonstrations, the backlash was swift and potent, further galvanizing the movement against him. Moreover, Oregon's resistance spread beyond city limits, infiltrating rural communities that gradually embraced a collective stance on trade policies, environmental regulations, and federal land management. As once divided communities began to coalesce around shared values, it became evident that opposition to Trump was not merely a political quirk, it was a cultural phenomenon. Oregon's citizens, united by a progressive outlook and a deep respect for both nature and community, firmly rejected any policies that undermined their vision for a sustainable, inclusive future. This enduring resistance reinforces that in Oregon, rejecting Trump's vision was not just about political alignment, it was an assertion of the state's identity and the preservation of its core values. Now you're probably wondering which state comes next. Well, wait until you hear about Washington. You won't believe how it responded to Trump's presidency. Number 4. Washington. What happens when a West Coast state, renowned for its dynamic tech boom, staunch environmental activism, and progressive policies, decides it has simply had enough? Washington has made it unequivocally clear that it does not stand for Trump's policies or his leadership style. The state's pushback was both forceful and multifaceted. From Seattle's bustling innovation hubs to Spokane's tight-knit communities, Washington rejected everything Trump represented. In the 2020 election, 58% of its voters cast their ballots for Joe Biden, a resounding vote that underscored how deeply Trump's divisive rhetoric and policies were unwelcome. Yet, the resistance in Washington extends far beyond election day numbers. The state's major cities are home to millions of tech workers, scientists, environmentalists, and activists who are fiercely protective of their progressive ideals. Seattle, for instance, is not only an epicenter of technological innovation, but also a hub of grassroots organizing, where neighborhood meetings and social media campaigns frequently decry Trump's rollback of environmental regulations and his dismissal of climate change science. In a state that has long pioneered renewable energy and sustainable practices, his disregard for environmental protection struck a particularly painful blow, leaving many residents determined to defend their cherished green economy. Moreover, Washington hosts some of the country's largest and most influential corporations, think Amazon, Microsoft, and a host of emerging tech giants. These companies, along with their employees, found Trump's hardline stances on immigration and his unpredictable approach to the tech industry deeply unsettling. When he adopted a strict position on H-1B visas, for example, corporate giants did not hesitate to push back, voicing concerns that such policies would stifle innovation and global competitiveness. This vibrant ecosystem of innovation and progress meant that Trump's policies not only clashed with the ideals of individual citizens, but also threatened the economic backbone of the state. Perhaps most striking is the personal nature of Washington's rejection of Trump. It wasn't merely a policy disagreement. Ordinary Washingtonians felt personally disrespected by his approach to social justice and racial equality. Protests in Seattle, organized vigils, and town hall meetings all became platforms for a deep, emotionally charged resistance against a president whose values seemed so alien to the local culture. The passionate response from the people of Washington, from activists on the streets to boardroom executives in downtown offices, exemplifies a unified stance, a refusal to accept leadership that undermines their collective progress. After experiencing such a robust and vibrant display of opposition, it's no wonder many are eager to see what comes next. Now let's dive into the story of a truly unique state, the Aloha State itself. Number 3, Hawaii. What does it look like when a state with deep ties to multiculturalism, an illustrious history, and a profound commitment to environmental stewardship unites to reject Trump's vision for America? Hawaii stands out as a state almost entirely incompatible with the former president's ideals. The opposition here wasn't just strong, it was fervent and unwavering throughout his entire tenure. The islands, which rely heavily on tourism, agriculture, and an incredibly diverse population, were quick to condemn Trump on an array of issues, even before the 2020 election brought these tensions into sharp focus. The story of Hawaii's rejection of Trump is layered and multifaceted. The state has long been a democratic stronghold, steeped in a tradition of inclusion and community that runs deep across the islands. Long before Trump came to national prominence, Hawaii had already distinguished itself by embracing a culture of aloha, one that prioritizes unity, respect, and shared prosperity. And when his rhetoric began to chip away at these cherished values, the backlash was swift and comprehensive. Here's an intriguing twist. The vigorous opposition wasn't confined solely to political elites or activist circles. It permeated every segment of society. Local business owners, particularly those in the tourism sector, whose livelihoods depend on the state's international appeal, found themselves deeply troubled by Trump's trade wars, visa restrictions, and policies that alienated global visitors. For them, the economic consequences were as tangible as the cultural ones. Meanwhile, Hawaii's residents, who are no strangers to environmental challenges such as rising sea levels and coastal erosion, saw his rollback of environmental protections as a direct threat to their future. In a state where the balance between nature and urban development is critical, his dismissal of climate science was met with profound alarm. Additionally, Hawaii's unique military significance further colored its political landscape. With a significant U.S. military presence, local communities and military families alike were unsettled by Trump's erratic foreign policies and his unpredictable approach to global alliances. This tension within the ranks added yet another layer to an already complex resistance, as those who serve and their families found themselves caught between national defense responsibilities and local values that prioritize stability and community welfare. Ultimately, the most astounding element of Hawaii's stance lies in its very spirit of aloha, a spirit of inclusivity, empathy, and unity that simply could not accommodate Trump's divisive, isolationist rhetoric. The island's people rejected a president who, in their eyes, failed to uphold these values, choosing instead to stand together in support of love, respect, and a more connected world. Now, as we transition from Hawaii's vibrant descent, you may be wondering what state comes next. Up next is Maryland, a state with a rich history and even more astonishing reactions to Trump's leadership. Number 2, Maryland. What happens when a state with a storied legacy of political activism reaches its breaking point with Trump's policies? Maryland made it unmistakably clear that it would have none of his rhetoric or leadership. From the bustling, vibrant streets of Baltimore to the polished, affluent suburbs adjacent to Washington, D.C., Maryland's residents united and overwhelmingly turned their back on Trump's agenda. In the 2020 election, the state delivered a staggering 65% vote for Joe Biden, underscoring a decisive rejection of Trump's divisive approach. But Maryland's stance goes well beyond partisan politics. It's a profound declaration of core values. Home to a large government workforce, the state's citizens held a deep-seated respect for public service. Trump's repeated attacks on federal employees were met with widespread indignation. In Maryland, issues from healthcare reform to the urgency of combating climate change resonated on a deeply personal level. The rapidity and intensity with which Marylanders rallied against his policies have cemented the state as one of the strongest anti-Trump bastions on the East Coast, driven not just by political preference, but by an unwavering commitment to values like fairness, respect for science, and social well-being. Number 1. Connecticut. Imagine a state where a highly educated populace meets an ingrained sense of social responsibility. A state that turns its back on divisive leadership with remarkable decisiveness. Connecticut exemplifies this ideal. With a robust Democratic base and an electorate that prizes education, healthcare, and environmental stewardship, Connecticut was quick to repudiate Trump's divisive tactics. In the 2020 election, the state provided a clear 20-point lead for Biden over Trump, signaling a formidable rejection of his agenda. Yet, what sets Connecticut apart is that its opposition is not solely a product of partisan alignment. The state's core focus on ensuring quality education, maintaining comprehensive healthcare systems, and protecting the environment rendered Trump's policies utterly unacceptable to its residents. In Connecticut, the backlash to his attacks on science and public welfare was both swift and overwhelming. The community's deep-seated sense of unity and mutual responsibility played a pivotal role in fostering widespread rejection of Trump's leadership. In short, Connecticut stands among the most anti-Trump states in New England, a testament to its commitment to progressive values and the common good. And there you have it. 10 states that simply could not stand Trump. From mounting economic concerns to rejections rooted in deeply held core values, these states made their voices heard, loud and clear. Each one rose up, asserting what they believe in, regardless of Trump's influence. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this video so we can keep bringing you more jaw-dropping insights. There are even more revelations coming your way, so stay tuned.